right, welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. No Sam here today, as I'm sure you all guessed. I'm going to be doing it by myself because, obviously, got to put some content out and can't wait for Sam to get back from earning that real money, not that YouTube money, you know, that we don't get, not that Patreon money that we don't have, not that Twitch money that we don't make. Sam had to go and get a real job, so not here at the moment, and we all miss him very much. So it means I'm going to be pressing the buttons for this broadcast. A few things I guess we'll start with. First of all, I want to shout out to everybody. We actually passed 600 subs on the channel for its first time in its history. We achieved that yesterday during a Kingdom Come stream, which actually the words come and stream probably shouldn't be placed next to each other like that. But 600 subs is where we're at. So thanks very much to everybody who has supported the content and supported the show. Also, you'll notice I'm wearing a Richard Lewis Reports t-shirt. I like to rep the merchandise myself. A bit of an embarrassing thing. Well, no, I don't know if it's embarrassing. You guys can tell me. Happened to me today because obviously, you know, I'm on this keto diet. Sorry to keep harping on about it. Turned into one of those cryptocurrency cunts where it's all you fucking talk about endlessly, incessantly. But anyway, I'm on this diet, so I order a lot of just like meat, you know, just huge amounts of meat. You know, it's made me want to fire up the Grinder app again. All this meat. And anyway, so I went out to get my barbecue from a local barbecue practitioner. And I came down and I was wearing this fucking t-shirt, right? Now, obviously, you know, it just sort of escaped my mind, you know, that I'm wearing this, okay? And I didn't know. I don't really... Hang on, it's that way, isn't it? No, it's like that. Why can't I do it? Yeah, there it is. You know, I didn't really discern that as necessarily recognizable. But obviously, of course, they've got my name as well on the fucking phone, haven't they? So I head down there and I'm wearing this t-shirt with my fucking face on it. It's like the most fucking narcissistic thing I think I've ever done in my life. And the person who's giving me the food goes, "Oh, what do you report?" And it took me like a few fucking minutes, like, you know, what the fuck? What? Oh, yeah. And then I just had to make up a complete load of lies about me working like, you know, I do news and that kind of thing. And she wouldn't give me the meat, and she really wanted to talk about it because she obviously felt like I was fucking important because I'm walking around wearing a t-shirt with my name and my face on it, and obviously I'm not important at all. So it was like, listen, this has been great, but can I just get the meat, please? Thank you. I report on Uber Eats drivers that don't give me my fucking food. How about that? All right. So anyway, also another thing that we're going to be doing on the podcast, as some of you guys will have seen when I tweeted it out, I bought a book. I treated myself, and I can't wait. It's Steven Seagal's book called The Way of the Shadow Wolves. Now, guys, this like, you remember from previous episodes of the podcast where we talked about Steven Seagal before, right? I'm sure you do. One of the biggest serial habitual liars. I still think my favorite story about Steven Seagal is the one where a movie producer went to meet him in his trailer, his personal trailer, and Steven Seagal was in there, and the movie producer goes, "Oh, is everything all right? What you up to?" And he went, "Oh, yeah, I'm just a little bit out of it right now. I just read this amazing script, one of the best scripts I've ever read. It was an emotional roller coaster, and it moved me to tears." And the movie producer goes, "Wow, that sounds great. Who wrote it?" And Steven Seagal goes, "I did." That is Steven Seagal in a nutshell. He is I bet he walks around with a t-shirt with his face on, right? I bet that's what he does. But anyway, so I had to get, that is a true story, by the way. That is a true fucking story. You can Google that. So anyway, I had to get his fucking book, Way of the Shadow Wolves, right? I had to go out and get it. And it's just amazing. I mean, first of all, Wolf on the cover, him, not young, ripped, good at martial arts, Steven Seagal. It's fat, reamed out, pseudo cowboy who lives in Russia, Steven Seagal. It's called The Way of the Shadow Wolves. Very evocative. Someone tweeted at me saying, "Oh, it sounds like a Metal Gear Solid, subtitle." And the deep state and the hijacking of America, and also it's got a forward by everyone's favorite law enforcement piece of shit, Sheriff Joe Arpaio. It's incredible. On the back, the blurb, this is just solid gold. Steven Seagal is an actor, producer, screenwriter, director, martial artist, sheriff, musician, and international businessman. Now, look, he could be all of those things. He could be all of those things, but in the very loosest sense of the term. Like, if I buy some duty-free whiskey when I'm coming back from Europe, am I an international businessman? I have conducted business internationally, I suppose. So, and then it says here, born in the USA with Mohawk heritage, that's obviously the Native American tribe, he is passionate about restoring the Constitution as the foundation for our republic and a return to responsible stewardship of Mother Earth, such as practiced by the Native Americans. Now, I'm pretty sure he played an Inuit person in a movie one time and said all this shit, but it's like, did it escape me my entire life that Steven Seagal was Mohawk, that he was, I don't know. I don't know about that. Anyway, obviously I haven't had time to read it all yet, but I will just show you some of the goodness contained within. So this is actually a fictional book. It's like a spy, like a spy novel, like a Tom Clancy novel, but the bad guy in it is Obama, from what I can tell so far. I think Obama is evil. But anyway, so because it's fiction, but it's so tied to reality, there's a little disclaimer in it, okay? And it says, and look, you can see I'm not making this up, okay? This is what it says. This is a work of fiction, and any resemblance to anyone living or dead is purely coincidental. Now, that's not unusual. You'll see that in a lot of books where they walk that line where it might be loosely based on truth or it might be inspired by reality, and they don't want to get a lawsuit. So you say, it's all just coincidence that it's exactly like this thing. But there's a weird thing underneath that standard disclaimer. And again, I'm not making this up. I wish I was. You can see this line here. Oh, there, under there, right? And what it says is, but always remember that the truth comes in many forms. So it's like, this is all lies. This is all bullshit. But remember, sometimes lies and bullshit can also be the truth. Stay woke, Shadow Wolves. Stay woke. It's the Shadow Wolves. Like, come the fuck on. And also disconcerting. Because I don't think this is going to be a literary masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. You ever wrote a short story for school? You ever had to do it for like an English class or something like that? I don't know if you ever have. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But one of the things you would never do at the end of any story, like you learn this as a kid when you have to write stories, You never just add some, like, unbelievable cheesy line. You never say it was all a dream. You never say, and this was just the beginning. You never do that. You get told it's really low rent, really poor. I learned that when I was like about, 9, 10, I want to say. Well, anyway, the last line, I don't want to spoil it for you, but the last line of the book legitimately is the end of the beginning. That's how it ends. That is how the book written by Steven Seagal ends. So I can't. I'm gonna really, it's 200 pages. That's gonna rot my fucking brain away. But for the sake of the lulz, I'm gonna do it. All right, anyway. So, look, let's get into the news. Let's break down some news. We're all about that news life. Hang on, though, because I've got to press buttons myself, and I've got a long list of links. What are we going to start with? Okay, well, first of all, I teased this a little bit last night, and I'll have to go to, bring up window 4. Let me just get into that. Yeah, okay. So, you can see here. Now, you'll have to excuse that this is a little bit all fucked up, I think, in terms of centering. But there you go. So, you can see here, we finally had the incident that has been teased the entire fucking time about emotional support animals on planes. Now, let's just be clear. I'll come back on camera for this. We've got to take back the skies, people. We have got to take back the skies. The skies no longer belong to humans. They belong to crazy people that think animals belong in the sky. Any type of animal. Animals and non-fully formed adults who can't behave themselves. Flying is always going to be a traumatic experience. There is no getting away from it. I'm probably repeating myself, but we've got to understand why flying needs to be a very controlled, hermetically sealed environment. Now, listen, they have made all these rules. You can't smoke on planes, right? You can't. You can't vape on planes. You can't get drunk on planes. You're allowed moderate consumption of alcohol, which is monitored by air hostesses and air staff, and air hosts, I suppose, is the masculine equivalent. They monitor everything you do the entire time you're up there. And this is in the interests of safety, right? Safety and also controlling the environment so people don't lose their mind, aren't being fucked up, right? So, fine. I accept those rules to fly and enjoy a safe, relaxed environment where I can just go to sleep and let's just get to the end. The thing you've got to remember is, if anything goes wrong on a plane, they can give you the illusion it's all going to be all right as much as they want, but you are dead, okay? If a plane crashes, you're probably dead, right? And it's not cool dead. It's not like they just turn the button off, like a bullet to the dome, or neck snaps when you get hung, or 5,000 volts through the brain in an electric chair. You've got about 5 minutes of screaming and being sad and regretting life decisions, and you're spending it with strangers. You look around, whose hand am I going to hold here? Well, you'll fucking do. You'll do, I suppose. And you're holding hands with a big, sweaty guy that you didn't even want to be sat next to, and that's the last human contact you're going to have before you die, and it's screams and hysteria and tears and absolute fear, because it's like, brace yourself, you're going to die! Brace! And that's it, and you've just got to sit and suck it up. So I would like to have an environment, okay? I would like to have an environment where it's as fucking not stressful and shit as possible, just in case I do have to die. Can I just die in fucking peace, please? Please. Well, no, because they want to put fucking animals on the plane, and they want to put screaming kids on the plane. Well, no, fuck you. Let's treat flying with the respect it deserves. And here it is. You see? This is what your support animals get you. And a girl was queuing up to get on a plane. I can't do anything about this black line. The website's fucked. And while she was trying to board, an emotional support dog tried to bite her on the forehead. She couldn't even get on the plane without being attacked by a dog. This isn't acceptable anymore. Enough's enough. People are abusing this shit. And we've just got to accept it. Dogs don't belong on planes. If they were meant to be on planes, they'd have frequent flyer cards. Enough's enough. People are abusing this support bullshit. I did air quotes there. You can't see it. People are abusing this support bullshit. They're just making it up, saying the dog is well trained and all of this, and they're not. And it doesn't matter how well you train a dog. Doesn't matter how well you train a dog. They're never going to get it, are they? They're a dog. They're never going to get that. It's not appropriate to lose your mind when you're on a giant flying tube that weighs so much it shouldn't even be conceivable it can fly. It's not acceptable. And that's been a long time coming, that has. So let's do it. I want a campaign. I want a petition. Now listen. Don't think I'm against animals. I like animals. I like animals of all kinds. Even the ones that I eat, which might seem hypocritical to some of you, because I eat a lot of animals. And it's sad, but they do taste fucking nice, don't they? And that's one of the unfortunate side effects. You know? But I recognize it when someone goes too far. I can recognize when someone goes too far and does something that they really shouldn't have done. Okay? And this is out of order. This is a story of a man from British Columbia, you'll see here. And there's all these like rescue animals, you know, and animals that they're being looked after, but they put them up for adoption. And potbelly pigs are one of the most popular kind of adoption animals. You know why? Because humans are dickheads. And they fucking buy little cute pig, just like Babe. Wee, wee, wee. They don't stay like that. And there's a lot of these pigs that are meant to be the pot-bellied ones that never grow up, or the miniature teacup pigs, or whatever the fuck they're called. And you're just getting sold real farm pigs. And that's happened a bunch. There was a video about it. And it just grows into a giant pig and you're stuck with it. Now, pigs are smart. Pigs are intelligent. I like pigs. It's a fucking shame that bacon is fucking out of this world. It's just a shame for them. But this is just too much, mate. This is a guy who adopted a rescue pot-bellied pig. And then, after going through the process and applying, he then ate the pig. He just got it and ate it. He had to fill in a form saying why he wanted to look after the pig. He promised to look after the pig. And he just killed and ate the pig. I'll read you the story. A British Columbia resident who adopted a pot-bellied pig named Molly from the SPCA and then ate it has been banned from future adoptions. I mean, that is the least you can do. Molly was one of 57 pot-bellied pigs to be seized following an animal cruelty investigation on Vancouver Island a year ago. So this animal's already had a rough time of it. SPCA staff say they spent months nursing the pigs back to health before they could be adopted. Someone adopted Molly in January, but the SPCA has been informed the pig's owner ate the animal last week. Oh yeah, 57. Pigs live a long time, you know. They got like human-esque lifespans. They're also, just for a bit of trivia, motherfuckers, they're also the only animal, apart from us, that gets sunburn. So, Laurie Chortick, a spokesperson for the BC, that's the British Columbia, SPCA, said staff are extremely upset because they did everything in their power to give the pig a home where they thought it would be loved and cared for until it died naturally. Our staff conducted a thorough adoption counselling process, she said in a statement to CTV Vancouver. The adopter gave assurances verbally and in writing that their intent was to keep the animal as a pet. Unfortunately, it is a rare instance where an adopter blatantly lied to get free bacon. And get this, because they were the legal owners of the animal after the adoption, it is not illegal in Canada to eat animals for food, and there is no legal recourse. Poor Molly. Poor Molly. Right. Also, while we're worrying about animals, skunks. Skunks are smelly on occasion. They are known for, I mean, I grew up watching Pepe Le Pew, which was a bit weird. I don't know if you've ever seen Pepe Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew is a skunk that, as far as I can tell, what used to happen in every Pepe Le Pew cartoon, right, was the skunk would find a black cat, a female black cat, and the black cat would accidentally get a white stripe down its back, and Pepe Le Pew would chase after the cat with the intent of having sex with it and just wouldn't let the cat get away. Now, back then, I suppose that was called precociousness. Now we call it rape. We've come a long way, haven't we? But yes, Pepe Le Pew, that was what I always associated skunks with. And indeed, the concept was as well that he was repulsive to even, the female skunks because he smelled so bad, because he's a skunk. So anyway, I get it. I get skunks are bad. I get it. This guy, though, I don't know. I can't help but feel he's maybe lost his mind a little bit here. This is CBS Detroit. Man burns down home in attempt to remove skunks. So, the way this is written up is just ridiculous. A man who was just trying to get some skunks to leave him alone ended up burning down the rental home where he was living in Ferndale. The man told investigators he had had enough with the skunks, who had made a home in his crawl space, and was attempting to drive them out with a smoke bomb when things went awry. So, I mean, immediately, I see problems with this. If I had an issue with skunks in my home, I don't know if a smoke bomb would be the way to go about it. I don't know if that would be the weapon of choice, the method of removal I would choose. I might try some skunk repellent, maybe. Some loud noises. Certainly not an incendiary device in my own house, but, The bomb triggered a fire that spread through the crawl space and onto the first floor of the home on W. Webster near Edgewood Place. The fire was burning for roughly 15 minutes before the man called 911 for help. The fire eventually spread up through the walls of the home and to the attic. Firefighters extinguished the blaze, but flames were going through the roof. The home is a total loss. The skunks appear to have run away. The skunks appear to have run away before the flames consumed the home, as no carcasses were found at the scene. If this is where, just if you want the cherry on the top for this article, though, the fire chief, they finished the article off by getting the fire chief to tell people, don't burn down your house to get rid of animals in your house. If residents have issues with pests or rodents, Ferndale Fire Chief Kevin Sullivan suggests hiring professionals to deal with the problem. However, if one is an absolute diehard do-it-yourselfer, please read and understand the directions and warning labels before applying an incendiary smoke bomb to your home or garage. Yeah, just read the instructions about that. Absolute fucking nuts. Okay, what else have we got in the news? Oh yeah, Kevin Carrot. This is a bit of a strange one. I don't know if you've seen this. You might have. You might have come across this on the internet. But basically, this is a story about a lovable carrot, which is being used in an advertisement right now. But watchdogs in the UK have banned the advert because they fear... You shut up. Shut up.
2 years, so you see Miss Howard bought a car from us.
This is why I need Sam to be pressing buttons and queuing stuff up.
I see.
Right. So anyway, this is an advertisement about Kevin the Carrot, and they're worried that it's so disturbing it could drive children to drink. So I'll just give you the overview. An Aldi advert featuring animated vegetable Kevin the Carrot has been banned over fears it can encourage children to drink alcohol. The clip was part of the German supermarket's Aldi extensive Christmas campaign. Despite receiving just one complaint, the Advertising Standards Agency deemed the advertisement irresponsible because of its strong appeal potential to the under-18 market. Parodying horror, The Sixth Sense, Kevin says in the advert, "I see dead parsnips." The clip then cuts to a voiceover which adds, Kevin was feeling a little bit tense. He thought that there were spirits. He had a sixth sense. As it turned out, his instincts were right. There were a few spirits that cold Christmas night. And obviously, it's referring to alcohol. So let's just watch. Let's just have a little look. Hang on. Oh, shit. Can I even get back to this now? I might have to. Yeah, here we go. Little Ronnie resize. So let's watch this advert for Kevin the Carrot. Let's see if it makes you want to drink alcohol. Let's have a look.
Dead parsnips.
Kevin was feeling a little bit tense. He thought there were spirits. He had a sixth sense. As it turned out, his instincts were right. There were a few spirits that cold Christmas night. Award-winning bottles for raising a toast. And one frightened carrot who had just seen a ghost.
So, I've got to say, I don't understand how anybody would think that was a, kind of, aimed at kids. I don't really understand that at all.
You can't hold back.
It seems to me that anything that's vaguely childlike shouldn't have to be, like, adults shouldn't have to avoid it. Like, you wouldn't say, oh, there's an ironic cartoon aimed at adults, so we must stop that in case kids see it and get the wrong idea. It just seems so egregious to ban Kevin the Carrot. It was actually quite a clever advertisement. I don't know. Seems a bit much. Rest in peace, Kevin the Carrot. Career ended, dead. Dead before it really began. Right, we got also as well, this is an interesting thing, talking about adults and children. Pole dancers. Sure, we all know what pole dancers are. They're women in scantily clad clothes, and they dance around a pole. I've seen plenty of them. You can see here, this is in the Telegraph, and I thought this was an interesting moral debate, because a care home, that's where elderly residents live, you know, the very elderly, when their families can't be fucked with them anymore, and they put them in a home because they've either become too difficult to care for, or there's not enough room, or, you know, it's just not pleasant to sort of think about your parents and having to wipe their ass and stuff. So what they did was that this particular care home decided to put on pole dances for the elderly residents. And it caused a bit of a stir. It caused a bit of controversy. I'll read you the full story here. Care homes have tried everything from art lessons to visiting children in an attempt to keep their residents occupied. Now one home has gone a step further and introduced pole dancing as part of their entertainment program. Fairmill Grange organized the inappropriate activity, which is more commonly associated with clubs than care homes, after its residents reportedly wanted to see something a bit different. Despite being criticised, the nursing home in Christchurch, Dorset, has defended the activity. 6 women took part in the show, carried out to 1950s and 1960s music, which received an overwhelmingly positive reception from residents. A metal pole was erected in the communal lounge where the women performed a series of acrobatic moves to songs by ABBA and Frank Sinatra. Local councillors, however, it's always the fucking council, isn't it? Honestly, if you do work for a local council, like, can you just assess how worthless your life actually is? You work for the lowest tier of government. You are the pathetic entities that the term petty corruption was invented for. You serve nothing and no one. You gobble up taxpayers' money on frivolous little luxuries, which aren't even luxuries in the grand scheme of things. We're talking custard creams, you fucking morons. Local councils. Just what? Slimy pits. Anyway, Christchurch councillor Peter Hall said he was absolutely surprised that pole dancing had taken place. My view, right, he volunteered, no one having asked him. My view is that it is completely inappropriate for a care home. It's not really the sort of entertainment I would have thought that the residents wanted, the residents did, they asked for it, or would have encouraged. So, right, let's just get here, right? Okay. There's this weird attitude, especially in British society, Western society in general, but British society particularly, that when you go beyond a certain age, once you go beyond a certain age, you cease to be a human being. It's crazy. You know, I've talked about this on the show before. I used to have a girl who used to be a elderly care and palliative care sort of specialist. And she used to look after old people. She'd worked in homes. She'd done home care, you know, in like, you know, state council bungalows, and gone door to door with it. And, you know, I used to go out on the runs with her sometimes, because sometimes she might need to distract, you know, a distraction while she does something that they don't want the old person to know about. And, you know, you talk to old people, and it's like, yeah, all right. There's little elements where you can see you're, you know, maybe reverting to a childlike state in some areas. But these people have fucking insane stories if you just listen. Imagine it. We talk all the time about, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a time machine so we can go back and learn like what it must have been like. You got them. They're called old people, you silly cunts. They're there. Go talk to them. Have a conversation with someone. Ooh, over 70. Like, just try it. Just see what happens. No one ever fucking does it, right? They can't be asked. It's all the fucking joke. Oh, they smell a piss.
This home is less than a 10-minute walk from my home. Literally all the homes round MTRY and interact with the residents.
Wait a minute.
One home came into my school every week when I was in year 8, real creepy sometimes.
Excellent. Yes. I realize what that is now. When I was when I was doing Kingdom Come, because the antagonists in that game are Hungarian, I put the donation onto Hungarian, and I was waiting for people to donate with funny donations so it would be in Hungarian. And then no one donated. And I woke up today, and yeah, there we go. So that's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, I'm going to take that off, actually, if it's all the same with you guys. Just going to change that if it's all the same with you.
Hello, my name is Joanna.
Good to meet you, Joanna. You're not Hungarian. Excellent. Right, so we're not having Hungarian text to speech on during what's meant to be a serious broadcast. Anyway, point is, guys, that there's all these old people, and it's mad. It's all fucking memes. Oh, they smell a piss. I mean, yeah, sometimes they do. Do you know why? Because your body fails and you can't necessarily hold a piss in. It does happen. It'll happen to you if you're lucky enough. I mean, these are the options, right? You either live long and become infirm, or you die young and you've missed out a big old chunk of time. Take your pick. Pick your poison. There hasn't been a cure for aging or death yet. So I never understood why people were straight fucking always like anti. I just don't like it. Old people are so creepy. Again, some old people are creepy. Some non-old people are creepy. So it blows my mind that, if you ever want to get a handle, I wish I'd spent a bit more time talking to my grandfather, who was a war hero, didn't spend anywhere near enough time with him because of familial disputes. And I urge you, if your grandparents are still alive, or if you've got a next door neighbor who's old, I guarantee you, without wanting to put any stereotypes out there, they'll be happy to talk to you, and you might fucking learn something. It's wild, isn't it? It's almost as if we shared all of our collective knowledge with each other, we'd all be in a better place. And yes, they'll probably appreciate a fucking conversation. Because they don't get many of them, which is another thing they talk about. Oh, hello.
Where is this care home? I need to sign up. Are they giving out those blue pills too? D.
They're giving out blue pills for the D. Thanks for the donation. You know what I mean? I just don't get it. So anyway, the point of this fucking tangent, what I'm talking about here, is that obviously these old men are men with urges. And the heterosexual ones among them want to see some flesh still. Obviously. They get titillated in the same way. It's like, oh, bloody hell. My granddad would never want to look at a scantily clad woman. How the fuck are you here then? How do you exist? Like, did he just fucking jerk off onto something and it just as luck would have it, you were like, people honestly think it's like it all stops. It all just, I haven't had an erection in 20 years, me. It's so crazy, right? Old people still have sexual desires. Might not be pleasant to think about, And certainly, look, I always remember, there's a great stand-up comic who never gets props. Rob Newman. Rob Newman was one of the biggest British comedians in the 1990s. And he used to be partnered with David Baddiel, British, Jewish, Londoner, author, comedian. And they used to have this thing called Newman and Baddiel in Pieces. And it was amazing. It was one of the best shows. It was like rock and roll comedy. They had like a live tour. They did all this stuff, right? And that's before Baddiel joined up with Frank Skinner, did fantasy football, all of that nonsense, right? And Rob Newman was a fucking, a really great comic. It's amazing that he's faded into obscurity because he's still straight fire now. I watched one of his recent sets, which he did to a room of like 50 people, and it's hilarious. But he talks about this phenomenon of like your standards that you have now. Imagine if you held your sexual standards up throughout your life. You would just, there would be a cutoff point because you would stop being desirable to the people that you would be desirable. Your options would not match up with your desires. So there would be a cutoff point for sex. And he did this whole routine about it, saying, imagine old people in the old people's home saying to each other, oh, have you seen that Gladys? She's got ripe breasts, she has, all the way up to here. And you should go watch it because people still have sexual desires. They're just modified. Things change. Yeah, it's not all about sex. Obviously, the older and older you get, there is a actual reality where you can't physically perform. And it becomes about companionship and not wanting to go into the great unknown alone. But again, 60-year-old guys, 67-year-old guys, 70-year-old guys, they're obviously, why wouldn't they want to look at fucking pole dancers? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? And again, they chose to do it. And you got the council coming in. Well, this is highly inappropriate. If it's not inappropriate for me to go and look at it, it's definitely not inappropriate for a guy who's lived fucking 40 years more than me to look at it. That was the other thing. Futurama talked about it. Once you hit a certain age, once you got over 100, you get access to ultra porn. It's just insane, isn't it? That we just put people out there and we just pretend, he's old now. Fuck him. He's not real. Yeah. Ridiculous. What we do to these people. So there was that. And then just to lighten the mood, cheer you all up a little bit. Obviously, when Sam gets back, we're going to tackle what happened in Florida. Yes, we're going to talk about guns and America and everything else on the podcast. We're not ignoring it because we've gone soft. We're going back to it. But I want Sam here because I want the show to be planned out and free-flowing and no mistakes. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I live in America. I love the Constitution. Oh.
Get old, I aspire to fill a certain old man's shoes who is banned around every farm in Britain, no kappa.
Don't bring him up, mate. Thanks for the donation. Right. I love the Constitution. I love America. And the Second Amendment exists. It's there. And I understand the principle behind it. And I think it's a great principle. I know, sorry. Some of you might not like it. It's not a popular thing to say right now. But the principle behind that amendment is something wonderful, whether the reality plays out like that, right? The idea. And this is what makes me fucking so angry when morons, because this is how you spot morons. They regurgitate glib and trite sound bites without actually thinking about what they're saying. So here is glib and trite soundbite number one. I don't think the founding fathers had assault weapons and machine guns in mind when they made the Second Amendment. Why? Why do you think that? What is the basis for that thought process. I'm going to tell you, actually, if you look at the way it's worded, they absolutely designed the clause to be future-proof. So they did have it in mind. They had any weapons in mind. It wouldn't matter if the nuclear bombs, Death Stars. The point of the Second Amendment and the way it's worded is that if the fucking government has it, you can have it. That way there will never be a tyrannical government. It wasn't, oh, wait a minute. The government's got automatic weapons now. Fuck, you can't have those, but the government can. The principle is that you meet the government head for head so you are not dominated by a fucking tyrannical government. That is the principle of it. And if you look at the history of any despotic regime, they don't want the populace to be able to defend themselves. They don't want guerrilla warfare to occur. It is nonsense. Now, you can talk about gun ownership and background checks and what people should and shouldn't have access to, and I'm very interested in that debate. But as soon as you say the founding fathers, they wouldn't have wanted they exactly wanted that. They exactly wanted it. And also, historically, there were automatic weapons back then. You fucking cretins. So yes, they did have automatic weapons in mind because they'd seen them. Sure, you had to crank them up a little bit. Brrr, brrr. Haven't you seen the fucking Wild Bunch? Anyway, sorry. Got a little bit triggered there. But the point is, we're not going to talk about that on the show just yet. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this. This is why you should always respect guns. Because if you're a bad person and you don't respect guns, occasionally, karma, which isn't real, will come and bite you on the ass. As it did happen in this story. Great headline. Big fan. All right. Robber, this is from the NJ.com. Robber shot himself while pistol whipping his victim, cops say. Four South Jersey residents plotted to rob an acquaintance on Tuesday night, but it all went wrong when one of the suspected bandits shot himself, authorities said. Police responded to a parking garage on Cooper Street in Woodbury shortly after 8:30 p.m. for a report of a shooting. Officers learned that one of the robbers allegedly struck the 20-year-old victim on the head with a gun. The weapon discharged, striking the assailant in the hand. The four fled the scene as police arrived, but were quickly apprehended following a motor vehicle stop not far from the scene. The gun allegedly used in the assault was found in the car. These are fucking bright sparks, these, like. The robbery victim and the robber were taken to hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. There you go. So, turns out, if you're going to pistol whip people, put that safety on, friend. It's rare a gun will discharge off being, banged if taking a sharp knock. But come on. Yeah, I can just picture it now. I bet he had his finger around the trigger while he pistol whipped the guy. So, ridiculous. All right, let's get this sweat off my brow. So, okay. We've got a big part of the show lined out for you today. We're going to talk about Kingdom Come. Okay, we're going to talk about Kingdom Come, the game. Because, and it doesn't surprise me, every big mainstream games release, every big mainstream media event becomes this weird cultural battle where the super ultra leftists say, It's racist, it's evil, it's racist, it's evil, it's racist, it's evil. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they want to get the conversation about how everything's racist and evil so we can shape the world in their image, the image of identity politics. That's why they do it. They inject the same tired shit into every conversation. And then over on the right, and I'm definitely more sympathetic to this view, but it's also the same thing. Like, ha, SJW's owned, but they're encroaching on freedom of expression, and freedom of expression is completely sacrosanct, except when it's like video games or abortion or any of the issues that we cry about. Now, I'm more sympathetic to that because as somebody who exists in a world where I want to have freedom of expression because it's key to who I am and key to the work I do lean more towards that on this particular issue when these things happen. But I can clearly see from my lofty position in the middle, both sides are ridiculous. But on this particular issue, Kingdom Come, it just shows why people have no respect for modern games journalism, no respect for modern games journalists, and how it's changed. When I was a lad, when I was a kid, guys, I know a long time ago, right? Let me tell you, games journalists were on the side of gamers, 100%. They were gamers. It was endemic. Most games magazines literally started with like two guys, a garage, a printing press, limited run. It wasn't big publishers and all of this. It was people who like games, writing about games, reaching out to developers. Developers were like, oh, shit, cool, a magazine. Here, have a free demo for your cassette that goes on the front. I grew up reading like Your Sinclair, shit like that. That shit was fucking great. You saw the layers and the way it was all one big organic scene, like from player to journalist to developer, it all worked out, and you funded those magazines by buying things out of the back of the magazines, and you funded the developers that gave the magazines content by buying the games. And if games were bad and if games sucked, developers back in the day, they used to put their hands up and go, yeah, we made a shit game. We failed. We'll do better. And games journalists used to say it was a shit game. Review scores meant something. It wasn't this weird Doritos and Mountain Dew, secret handshake, fucking give me freebies and I'll give you a good review thing that it became. And now it's become something even more grotesque than that, which I didn't think was possible. It's now become, we are failed political activists, failed political writers, failures at life. We're not where we want to be. We're not doing what we want to do. We have no consistent vision. And all we have is our politics, and we will inject it into every fucking thing we do. Game doesn't align with our politics? Bad review. And we'll write in the review, that's exactly what we're doing. They're not even clandestine in their bias anymore. They're not even clandestine in their contempt for you, their fucking audience. They fund games being developed on Kickstarters and things like this, and then don't disclose it, and then give it good reviews, even though you can see it's a subpar product, and they turn around and go, yeah, but it started a conversation. This is where it is. This is what games journalism is. You cannot release a contentious game with a non-mainstream leftist political message and expect fair coverage. That is a fact. But here's the hilarious part. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. They've done it for so long, so often, so many times. Games journalists have just given... gamers have just given up on games journalists. They've just literally said, all right, fine, we get it. You don't like us. You don't like the medium. You're never going to be honest with us. You're never going to protect us as consumers. So we're going to find people who will. And then you start to wonder, it's weird that. It's weird how all the gamers went and fucking started liking Total Biscuit. It's weird, that, isn't it? It's weird how all YouTube and Twitch and all these new wave mediums have games reviewers on them, which we trust completely because we see them. We know they're like us. I'm not saying there aren't, people on who only inject their politics, but we shifted. We don't trust games journalists anymore. Getting a good review in a games magazine only matters to the developers because there's usually bonuses awarded for high Metacritic scores in contracts when crunch time comes around. That's the only reason anyone cares about it. Otherwise, it will have zero impact on your sales. Zero. If Polygon, who are just an absurd publication now, they are just an absurd and ludicrous publication with Ben Kuchera, the archetypal goony beard man, who I just don't even understand what his role or function is. Like, why would you persist? You're miserable, Ben. You don't like games, Ben. You don't like gamers. You're just shouting into the void about how bad it all is. Go do something else. I did a YouTube video about it. Getting out is okay. No more sunken cost fallacy for you, my friend. Go do something else. You're clearly good enough, right? Go do something else. It's that easy. Just fuck off. You won't be missed, and you'll have a much better life. So it's win-win. And it's all the journalists. There's so many of them trying to find honest publications that just write honestly and earnestly about games with a consumer viewpoint at the heart of what they do. It's so impossible. Now, Kingdom Come Deliverance, okay? It stirred up all this controversy. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to show you the controversy, and we're going to go through it all. So you can see it's not hyperbole. A lot of people go, you're just doing the anti-SJW thing where you read the headlines and you don't cut. No, trust me. You are going to be sick of all the examples I'm going to bring up, and these are not all of the examples. Kingdom Come Deliverance was a Kickstarter game. And it's a Kickstarter game that received a lot of funding, a lot of interest. It promised to be a historically accurate medieval life simulator with a open world and quests and a great story and AAA value, AAA kind of a production value. And naturally, everybody said this is fucking great. So first off, the fact that this game has launched and is as good as it is, and it's one of the most successful Kickstarters of all time, but you wouldn't think it. Why, Richard? Why? Well, to do that, we have to go back in time. You see, there's a developer called Viara. First name, is it David Viara, I think? We'll find out in a second. Back in 2014 and 2015, when Gamergate was the naughty word, that's hashtag Gamergate, a hashtag anybody could use, that's been investigated by law enforcement, the FBI, and nobody has found a hierarchical structure with leaders that engaged in organized and targeted harassment. It's not there. It didn't exist. If anyone shows me evidence that existed, which the FBI couldn't find, I will be more than happy to recant anything I said about Gamergate in 2014 and beyond. Happy to do it. No one's ever risen to the challenge. It was a boogeyman invented so the games journalists could actually justify injecting their shit, boring, tired politics into their work and pretend they were going against something. They were crusading. In short, they did Napoleonic politics in the publishing world, which is you create an enemy overseas, abroad, that no one knows anything about, and you blame everything on them, and the populace will always support the war effort. Sounds familiar. Thinking fucking face, fucking emoji, .jpeg, fuck you. It's bullshit. I have never, and to even sit here, I'm not standing, I'm not a midget. To even, sit here and say this is dangerous. It's dangerous. I was told repeatedly while I was a journalist, do not say the word Gamergate unless you are to condemn it. And I'm like, well, why? I've looked at the evidence. I haven't seen any evidence. It's career death. It's over. And I'm going to show you why. You see, Kingdom Come Deliverance was developed by a man who had been vocally supportive of the Gamergate movement at a time when the narrative was in the balance. And the narrative became, it was a bunch of incels who wanted to harass women in gaming. No, it was a bunch of people who were sick of the fucking garbage that was happening in games journalism. The collusion, the politics, the nonsense, the low quality, writers who don't even understand the medium they write about. It was a pushback against all of that. And yes, there certainly were some people who harassed some people. And there certainly were some idiots. And there certainly were some pieces of shit that made it about whatever little fucked up dreary fantasy they had in their minds. But that's true of everything. I could go on any hashtag on Twitter and find people telling other people to kill themselves. Hashtag Jeeps are bad. It'll be there. You know, it's the internet. It's how it works. So anyway, the guy who developed Kingdom Come had spoken up about Gamergate. Said he was pro Gamergate. He did an article in an interview with Kotaku saying, I support Gamergate. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird that coincidentally, this game gets pulled up for being racist. And interestingly enough, this developer was highlighted as being problematic. And I'll show you what I mean by problematic. He has been portrayed as a neo-Nazi and a white supremacist because of the following. So first of all, yes, spoke out in favor of Gamergate. But let's just see what else we've got here. Somebody on Reset Era. Reset Era, by the way, is where Neo Gaff went. Yeah, that's it. Daniel Vavra. That's where all the hardcore slime from NeoGAF went, after it turned out the head of NeoGAF likes to sexually assault people. Allegedly. Ding, 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 ding. We're safe. Allegedly. So let's have a look. Let's see why he's so bad. One person went through and collated all of the wrong thing to justify why this game shouldn't be reviewed, or should be unfairly reviewed, or should be called racist. So, first of all, you can see here, he retweeted James Woods. A lot of these are retweets. Okay? James Woods. Texas is as good as it gets. They got sharks swimming up the freeways, and Texans are in that water saving people. Hashtag Harvey Heroes. That is considered a reason why this guy is racist. That retweet. Not his own tweet. Not his own tweet. Here, Jack Posobiec, who we've mocked on the podcast. You can see leadership. After Trump's speech, the Czech Republic has become the second country in the world to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Jerusalem. Interesting, isn't it, that Trump has took a very pro-Israel stance, a pro-Jewish stance, and is still being labeled an anti-Semite. This is of particular interest because Daniel Vavra is from the Czech Republic. That retweet enough to label him a racist, apparently. Let's go on. He retweets Paul Joseph Watson. Uh-oh. That's bad. And you can see here, this is when Mitt Romney famously supported Antifa, who have been labeled a terrorist organization in America. That's a fact. That's not right-wing hyperbole. They are recognized as a terrorist organization, and Mitt Romney came out and said they're not the same as Nazis, because one side is racist, bigoted, and Nazi, and the other opposes racism and bigotry. Morally different universes. Interesting. And look at this. You see here. What do Antifa, the KKK, and ISIS have in common? They're all collectivist ideologies, same shit, different gang colors and scapegoats. Another retweet, naughty retweet. How dare you say that people running around with masks, beating people up for suspected ideologies is a bad thing in modern America? How dare you? Here he is also. Not all heroes wear capes. Somebody praising James Damore. This is in his likes. So this person went through all his likes used to condemn him. You can see here, socialist admits their real agenda. Now also understand, Daniel Vavra grew up in a socialist country where the socialist regime didn't necessarily apply true socialist values, but were definitely censorious, were definitely military focused, definitely did a bunch of bad shit to people. This is just a guy calling out socialism. That makes you racist and dubious now. Look, Charlie Kirk was a Breitbart writer who supported Bannon and Milo, and a conservative activist who founded Turning Point USA, which is a conservative organization that secretly works to combat campus liberalism. Oh my God, the horror! The horror! The horror of it all. Okay, what else? Daniel Vavra, here he is. He liked a tweet by Dave Cullen, which shows Dave Cullen showing a photo of some brave Kekistanis at what I assume is a conference, and Dave Cullen's in the middle of it. Racist, I guess. Yeah, look, Kekistan flag, the same one you find at Nazi rallies. Definitely isn't. You might notice that when you borrow imagery, you don't take on board ideology. Because if that was true, the National Socialists, a.k.a. the Nazis, they would have been the most peaceful organization in the world because they borrowed the swastika. Do you see what I mean? You see how that logically works? Iconography and imagery do not equate to ideology. It's weird that. It's weird how that works, isn't it? It's strange, isn't it? It's strange how that works. He also likes Gavin McInnes. After ruining movies and comedy, political correctness has finally attacked the last bastion of American meritocracy, sports. Donald Trump Jr. says, I'm going to take half of Chloe's candy tonight and give it to some kid who sat at home. It's never too early to teach her about socialism. Bit of a joke. Apparently you can't like that tweet. Another one from Eric Trump there, mocking CNN. Paul Joseph Watson with a little meme. If we make guns illegal, then nobody will get shot anymore. That's how he stopped everyone from doing drugs. And you can see here how he goes on. Gavin McInnes founded a white nationalist movement called Proud Boys. It's not a white nationalist movement in any way, shape, or form. So because of these likes and retweets, he hasn't said any discernible opinion of his own. He has been earmarked as a racist shitbag. A racist shitbag. And therefore, any art he creates must be warped through the prism of the mentally ill people who think any of that is racist. And therefore, they're the only audience left for games journalists. So what do you think happened? What do you think happened? Do you think the pro-Gamergate developer from the Czech Republic who wanted to make a historically accurate game from his region that reflected a time period which actually happened and had a profound impact on the country where he lives, do you think this guy was given a fair shake in the games press? Do you think? I'm probably going to surprise you here, but the answer is absolutely fucking not. And Kingdom Come was absolutely panned. And crucially, it was panned for being racist. Now, how could it be racist? What was it? Well, the main allegation was that because this guy had these obviously reprehensible views, I mean, I read an article the other day that literally said Gamergate was a dry run for the alt-right. This was in a high-level publication. This was presented as fact, inarguable fact. So, obviously, what they've done is they've taken these tweets and his supposed views, and they've identified one thing in it. There isn't a single person of color in the story. Now, you might think to yourself, oh, hang on a bit, Richard. Why, that's not cool, man. We do diversity now, right? Oh, I'm with you. And if this was set in modern day New York and it was just all white faces, I'd say, hang on a fucking minute. But because there wasn't a person of color in this game, people said that he had created his own virtual ethno-state. Now, there's many good arguments as to why there were no people of color in this game. And I'm going to give you the first one. There is no historical evidence to suggest there were any people of color in this region at the time. There might have been one or two, maybe in academia, according to Medieval POC, the blog, but nobody can pin down anybody of any note that was a person of color, any settlement where they had existed. This was historically a part of Europe where there hadn't been a lot of disbursement of people coming over, the Moors, other Arabic races, Muslims. It hadn't happened in this region yet. It was primarily Germanic and Eastern European people, which historically were not people of color at the time. But here's another good reason. Having played the game, do you know how big the game is? It's 9 square kilometers. That's not that big. 9 square kilometers of small hamlets and settlements and towns with like one big castle. So the assumption is that not only was there a statistically insignificant amount of people of color, if any at all, in the region at the time, it's also 9 square kilometers big. So you're now saying that, well, you know, there must have been some in that 9 kilometers back then. Well, no. So I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the outrage. I think you have to understand, okay, that for, you know, there are going to be periods and regions throughout history. You know, if you made a game, right, and it was set, I don't know, it was like the rise of Shaka Zulu, and you stuck white people in it, right? Apart from the ones, obviously, he rose up against. But, I mean, you stuck white people in his tribes and, like, where you would go, what the fuck is this? You would. It would be jarring. It wouldn't be historically accurate. It would be nonsensical at that moment in time. It'd be diverse, but it wouldn't be accurate. So, given that this was meant to be historically accurate, that was one of the key drivers of the game getting made, it does seem to me a little bit knee-jerky and absurd and crazy to call this game racist. And I think you would have to be incredibly disingenuous. You would have to be a bold-faced liar, pretty much, to present that as your view. Let's see what the game's press did. Should we see what the game's journalists did? Right, well, let's go to Eurogamer first. Eurogamer. They really set the ball rolling. Here was their review. Over at Eurogamer. Kingdom Come Deliverance review. History as double-edged sword. Okay, well, what do you mean about that? I'm going to take you down to the fair bit. Where was it? It praises the game, saying it has a meticulous eye for detail. The sword fighting is good. You know, when it works, it's a martial dance. A clothing and armor system. It's amazing. The story, and then it says the story's really good. You know, it drags it out of the mud. But here we go. When Kingdom Come does succeed, it's peerless. The Elder Scrolls and The Witcher can feel flimsy next to the sophisticated systems and heft of history on show here. But there's also a big problem. There's also a big problem. There are no people of color in the game beyond people from the Cuman tribe, a Turkic people from the Eurasian steppe. The question is, should there be? The game's makers say they've done years of research and found no conclusive proof there should be, but a historian I spoke to who specializes in the area disagrees. Now, you're like, oh, that's pretty damning. If a historian disagrees, let's see what they've got to say. We know of African kings in Constantinople on pilgrimage to Spain. Yep, game's not set there. Okay. We know of Black Moors in Spain. Okay, game's not set there. We know of extensive travel of Jews from the courts of Cordoba and Damascus. Okay, game's not set there, and no evidence to suggest they traveled to Bohemia. We also know of black people in large cities in Germany. Okay, game's not set there. Czech cities Olomouc and Prague were on the famous Silk Road, which facilitated the trades of goods all over the road. Game's not set there. If you plot a line between them, it runs directly through the area recreated in Kingdom Come. You just can't know anybody got sick and stayed a longer time, he said. What if a group, look at the fantasy here, what if a group of black Africans came through and stayed at an inn and someone got pregnant? Every one night is enough for a pregnant... So the theory, after years and years of historical research by the team, and the best the historian could come up with is, what if a group of black Africans traveling on the Silk Road decided to stay in this small part of the Silk Road and have a baby? What? That you're comfortable with that being the bedrock for labeling the developer a racist? And look, so keep in mind, it was framed like this. Should there be people of color? A historian I spoke to disagrees that there shouldn't be. And then they go, it's not conclusive proof. Listen, when it comes to proof, the only proof that really matters is conclusive proof. Otherwise, it's not really proof, is it? You know, maybe I missed a fucking thing here. It's not conclusive proof, but it's readily available doubt to undermine Warhorse's interpretation. What muddies the water further is whose interpretation is overridingly... is whose interpretation it overridingly is. Creative director, writer, and Warhorse co-founder Daniel Vavra. He has been a vocal supporter of Gamergate, and involved in antagonistic exchanges on Twitter collected in a Reset Era thread. That's the thread I just showed you. How can you call yourself a journalist and call a series of retweets and likes an antagonistic exchange? More recently, he wore the same t-shirt depicting an album over by the band Burzum every day at Gamescom 2017. Now, Burzum is indeed the band with Varg Vikernes. Varg Vikernes is the guy who got jailed because he killed his rival. Was it Hieronymus? I always forget. I was a teenager at the time. But he murdered another black metal rival and went to prison and did the maximum sentence in a Norwegian prison, which is 21 years, and continued to record albums in there. And while he was in there, he had a brief period where he said he was an actual Nazi. But nobody ever disputed the fucking music. Nobody ever said the music was bad. And the album that was on Vavra's t-shirt is one of the most critically acclaimed fucking death metal, black metal albums of all time. So there's about 4 million people who must be racist as well. Because obviously you have to be... There is no separation of art and artist anymore. But anyway, I will say this. I think it's an incredibly stupid and deliberately antagonistic thing to do at this time. It was a red rag to a bull, or rather to a bullshit. And yes, my bad. I know I shouldn't conflate black metal and death metal. I'll be getting stabbed to death and my church will get burnt down if I make crazy mistakes like that. So then, after strongly implying the game is racist, they then go on to say, this isn't to say Kingdom Come Deliverance is a hotbed of racism, because it isn't. The Turkic Cumans speak a different language and are a hostile enemy, which seems like a limited portrayal, but no less so than any other war game I can think of. Then again, I'm white, so maybe I've missed things, and racism can take many forms, one of them being exclusion. Wink, wink. It then goes on to talk about, misogyny, as if medieval times were a hotbed of fucking women's rights. But let's just, talk about the game. I played the game. You guys have been watching me play the game, right? Do you know what the main storyline is about? It's about a poor, yes, he's a white male. I know. Right? It's bad. It's about a poor white male who is from the lowest strata in society. He literally is a peasant. And his entire village, his entire settlement is destroyed by a warlike people. And he then has to, try and fucking get revenge. So, this game makes you a refugee. And if you watched it, you go out, you go to a place called Ratai, and everyone you talk to in Ratai is fucking raging about refugees. They're all racist cunts. They got no time for you. You're a refugee. So, isn't the game on some level perhaps making you think about tolerance? Right? Nah, couldn't possibly. You'll notice they deliberately didn't talk about the storyline at all. Didn't talk about the fact that he's a refugee. Didn't bring up the fact that everywhere you go in Ratai, people are complaining about refugees, and it's actually put you in a position of power where you can show clemency to refugees when you join the town guard. It's weird, isn't it? Missed all of that out. And this happens, by the way, in the first 8 hours of the game. Any games journalist who's reviewing the game should have played at least 8 hours. But no, we can't mention that. Mustn't mention that, because if we mention that, you might start thinking, hang on a minute, you're just fucking mental. You're just making shit up. Anyway, doesn't end there. I told you, you'll be sick of the examples by the end of the show. What do you think happened in the Metro? The Metro, a filthy little rag that literally offers no reporting of any value. The Metro. Kingdom Come Deliverance is a medieval life simulator. This coverage here talks about, you can see it goes through, it's like The Witcher, all the boring comparisons, it's colorful, it's got a skill tree, but, it doesn't make for a very compelling gameplay, And as for the controversy over the game director's politics, it's hard to say whether it affects the game or not. It certainly doesn't. We certainly don't know whether there are any black people in Bohemia during the period. But the game doesn't restrain itself when portraying other minorities, particular humans, as dangerous outsiders, while female characters are constantly sidelined or treated as chattel. It's a medieval-style bigotry. Yeah, it's medieval times. It's better be historically accurate. Why are you even bringing it up? That was the Metro's take on it. Polygon. Please release me. Let me go. Polygon. You can imagine what they had to say about it. They gave it a bad review. They said it's beautiful but boring. Now, let me tell you, and anyone who's watched my stream, boring is not the fucking word. Boring is not the word. within the first hour or so of the game, I was throwing shit. I was throwing shit at a guy's house, and then I got into a fist fight. And then I had to maybe go to jail and pay a fine. And then my entire village got fucking burnt to the ground. There is no way this game can be described as boring. To say that is to have not played it. There's always something happening. And that's just the tutorial. Says here, an immature, awkward thing. Oh, why is it immature, I wonder? But not without its graces. So let's go down. Let me find you the killer. The killer bits of this. NPCs, beautiful setting, voluminous codex. I don't feel like an actor. Good. Kingdom Come. Hunting. Functional level. Real world. RPG. Is it right towards the end? It feels authentic. Keep that in mind. Here we go. So more importantly, it feels authentic. I wonder why that could be. Maybe it's all that historical research they put into the game. But the game is not without its controversies. Warhorse is a team of more than 150 people, but the game's creative director has gone out of his way to rationalize his support of Gamergate, a loosely knit hate group. Definitely wasn't. That has devoted time to harassing women. Definitely didn't. People of color and journalists in the past. All fiction. So outspoken is the studio's leadership on cultural issues that they have found it necessary to work with a German outlet to publish anti-fascist, anti-sexist, and anti-racist statements prior to their game's launch. Do you know why they did that, Polygon? Because of fucking dirty little rags like you publishing a load of shit about people and writing hit pieces. So there you go. But if you're going to pick up Kingdom Come, know what you're getting into. Well, yeah, I do know what I'm getting into. I'm getting into a fucking pretty good game, actually, if it's all right with you, Polygon. Okay, what about The Guardian? What's The Guardian got to say? You can rely on The Guardian. I mean, The Guardian is a British newspaper that holds itself up to the highest standard. Surely The Guardian will be objective in its reporting on this game. 3 stars. Okay. Prides itself on historical accuracy. Good, good. You're Henry. Commitment to the vision. Medieval Europe is vibrant. Okay. Yearns to be explored. Good, good. Excellent. Blood will spill. You know, talks a little bit about delay input. Yeah, that's a problem. Shows you've played it, I suppose. But you are meant to be shit at the start, and it gets better as you level up. The game isn't mean-spirited. But what's all this? Hang on. Henry's lowly class origins are occasionally remarked upon, but never present much of a barrier to him. I mean, that's a complete lie in and of itself, because you can never attain good relationships with highborns if you act like a lowborn and don't bathe and shit like that. Meanwhile, contentious issues such as the role of women and the medieval attitude towards race are conveniently sidelined. Why does this game need to tackle, like, medieval times are over, aren't they? I mean, they're in the past, right? Like, they're not now. So why would we need to tackle medieval views on race? It's almost as if it just doesn't matter now, as it was like it happened, right? It happened. But no, of course, they bring it up and they give it 3 stars. Waypoint, which is the Vice vertical. Do you remember when Vice used to do cool documentaries? Do you remember when Vice used to send people out to in bed with ISIS? Do you remember General Butt Naked? Do you remember all this stuff? Do you remember when Vice used to literally put their journalists in danger to bring you the reality of what is happening in the world? Do you remember that? I remember that. I couldn't believe it. In fact, I worked for a lot of media companies at the time. And you know what they all used to say? They all used to say, fucking hell, I wish I'd come up with Vice. I wish I was doing that. That's some of the best reporting out there. Okay? Now what does Vice do? It's a bunch of insipid identity politics nonsense, a shadow of its former self, and they have a fucking games vertical. And the games vertical, of course, doesn't want to talk about games, because that would actually be the purpose of the vertical. What they want to talk about is politics, and we'll just mention games occasionally. So Vice took the stance of not reviewing or covering the game because it's racist. Imagine that. They have blacklisted the existence of the game, so their readership, who they are betraying by doing that, can't make any discerned, informed opinion about whether or not they would want to play the game. It's gone. They just aren't covering it. And they were proud of it. So proud of this fact, they dedicated an entire episode of their podcast to talking about it. And they put in the podcast, here, look, we haven't covered Kingdom Come Deliverance. Let's talk about why. Kingdom Come Deliverance, an open-world medieval RPG set during the Holy Roman Empire, launched earlier this week, and it's already an enormous hit. Waypoint hasn't written about the game yet, partially because we've struggled over how to cover a game whose creative director has both publicly and forcefully supported Gamergate and made highly questionable statements about the game's historical accuracy. Not questionable whatsoever. No evidence has been presented to say their vision is historically inaccurate. Regarding representing people of color, maybe we shouldn't cover it at all. What is this? What is this nonsense? Let me tell you, lesson one of journalism. If you're a critic, all right, you don't just say, not gonna review this because, you know, the grip, right? The person operating the boom had, you know, fucking voted Republican once. You know, I'm not reviewing the movie. I'm not going to review James Woods movies. I'm not going to do it. I refuse. Slowly but surely, you aren't a critic anymore, are you? Because you are not objectively critiquing things. What you are is a hysterical child. So you can imagine, you know, this drummed up a lot of comments. And look, this is why I love Waypoint, actual ethical standards. It is the complete opposite of an ethical standard. Let me tell you about a journalistic ethical standard that everyone seems to have forgotten about. Objectivity. That is an ethical standard. You're not being objective there, are you? By boycotting something that exists that's totally within your fucking remit as a critic to talk about because you don't like something one person on a team of 150 people who made this game as a labor of love said. I'm glad they haven't covered it. Also, the idea that Kingdom Come is realistic reminds me far too much of the terrible TTRPG, which purports to be realistic, but is instead a terrible fantasy world built around honorific and explicit content. The idea that just because there's terrible acts in real life means that any game that is realistic must include them is idiotic. Yes, it is idiotic when games that purport to be real include things that really happened. I couldn't agree more. Look at this. Holy shit, when I tried this game and promptly uninstalled and refunded because an objective called CW Rape popped up on screen, I had no idea of this background. But as I dug deeper into the marketing and then the opening act, I was like, a bunch of things about this game design philosophies feels like it's hinting at the ideology that formed Gamergate. I didn't know Gamergate was all fucking Czechoslovakian peasants. Is that what it was? Is that why I missed it? This is a cult. This is a cult. This is insanity. What people are saying here. The only stance against the publication refusing to inform you as their readership is to be outraged. But it's not about that, is it? It's not about that anymore. It's just about, hey, look, we all have the same politics, aren't we? Cool. Those people have a job to do. They're objectively not doing it, and they're not doing it for the flimsiest of reasons. So that was Waypoint. Of course, I mean, and I won't labor too much on this because this is sort of like shooting fish in a barrel. So I'll apologize in advance for even bringing it to your attention that it exists. This is progressive gaming. Come on, you can do it. So yeah, you can see here, Kingdom Come Deliverance still fails to deliver representation. Well, and what they do is to show that they should have representation. They show artwork from the time period, not regionally specific, I'll add, saying, look, there were black people back then. We know that. We know. That's not what we're debating. That's never been the debate. Look. Taking place in 15th century Bohemia means that Deliverance will coincide with the early days of Jan Hus at Charles University in Prague. Europe's early universities were among the most ethnically diverse locations on the continent. This would be an ideal site for historically accurate representation. It's not in the game. The above image is by Theodoric of Bohemia, a 15th century scholar and artist who had no qualms about portraying Saint Jerome with a darker skin tone. So, a guy who lived in Bohemia painted a saint, right? Newsflash, to be a saint, you have to be dead. That's one of the prerequisites to being canonized. So how can this guy be in the game? He's fucking dead! But because this guy painted a saint with a darker skin tone showing racial tolerance at the time, that means you have... What are we doing here? What is the debate? What are we really saying here? All right, doesn't end there, right? Surely you couldn't get fired. You couldn't get fired for pointing out what I'm pointing out on this very podcast. Surely you couldn't get fired for saying that not including black people in this game, given they were a statistical anomaly, if they existed in this specific 9x9 kilometer region at all at this time, is racist. Surely you couldn't get fired for saying that. Surely you couldn't. Well, it happened tangentially. They were related to this. There was it's a Twitter Poker Jungle. I don't know what Poker Jungle is, but somebody on the Poker Jungle account tweeted out, a developer team did not put in a statistically insignificant population into their game, and therefore it's racist and not worth covering, lol. The fact that it did so well despite negative journo coverage just shows how gamers don't trust these sites anyway. By the way, that's the only intelligent and informed opinion to take here. To call the game racist is absurd. It's absurd. It's an absurd lie, and it's a travesty. So many publications have betrayed their readership, betrayed their code of ethics to do that. That is the accurate tweet. And yes, indeed, many people have come to realize games journalists are not fit for fucking purpose, and therefore they take Steam reviews. In fact, actually, when you go to Metacritic now, do you look at the sort of curated and average of professional critics, or do you look at your fellow users? Don't get me wrong, Steam bombing and that's a thing, so it's not always a science. But I personally, when I get a game review, I go on, when I buy a game, I'll look at the reviews on Steam. Overwhelmingly positive. It's usually a good sign. How can that many people be wrong? Is there wisdom in the crowd? I'll take that over a games journalist any day of the week. So, we need to address this tweet. Oh, why, Poker Jungle? Why, Poker Jungle? Why must you address this tweet? Why is it so important? As the main three staffers are incredibly busy points in their lives, we had to invite someone to help with our social media. This tweet was made by someone who we thought we knew well and whose beliefs and voice lined up with ours. Evidently we were wrong. He has since been fired and his access to the page has been revoked. This wasn't even a controversial opinion. He simply said the game isn't racist and they fucking fired this guy, and I imagine based on how they said it, they severed all friendships. We apologize from the bottom of our hearts for any and all harm distress and confusion this caused. Just please know this isn't us or what we believe in. We'll be leaving the tweet up for the rest of the day with this attached apology so people understand the situation. But come tomorrow, we'll be deleting the racist remarks. So it's stricken from the record. Again, I remind you, the racist remarks were a developer team did not put in a statistically insignificant population into their game, and therefore it's racist and not worth covering, lol. That is now, in the eyes of these fevered morons, that is racist. It is. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. Are we done yet with the Kingdom Come thing? Which no, of course not. Publication called Play Nation said that because of the game's ideology, its historical accuracy, that is, it has actually got fans among neo-Nazis. I mean, what mad stretch is this? Kingdom Come Deliverance, racism, sexism, and a few neo-Nazi fans. Right? They say he's a neo-Nazi and proud of it. That's what they say about Vavra. They say as well, Vavra's YouTube account is also linked to historical conspiracy theories that speak clearly against an authentic representation of the Middle Ages. In addition, videos on radical metal bands, gender definition opponents, and supremacy of the white race can be found not true. Furthermore, Vavra believes that European history has no place for people who are not white-skinned. Never said that. Never said that at all. If I was Daniel Vavra, I would sue this shitty little publication into oblivion. They've literally said if you play this game, if you're a fan of this game, you're a neo-Nazi. So I imagine that applies to all the people who backed it on Kickstarter. Okay. There was also a hit piece in France about Daniel Vavra. Specifically, they didn't even really focus on the game. They just decided to go after Vavra himself. Hopefully this comes up because I'm running it through Google Translate and it's archived. Yeah, here you go. Kingdom Come Deliverance, a racist game. The historical pretext does not stand in the face of history. Talks about how it started well, but then says it is Daniel Vavra's white nationalist ideology under cover of historical reality. So no people of color in Kingdom Come a choice. This is again what I mentioned. The blogger specialist in medieval history, medieval people of color, believes that the absence of colored characters in Kingdom Come is above all a choice that developers have made because the historical truth is not clear. Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, all the evidence points to this being a historically accurate interpretation of the populace of the time. Right, so anyway, this blogger put this shit out. And, you know, yeah, people fucking responded badly and were telling the blogger to kill themselves. It's not cool. Like, people are fucking retards. But, you see, they went and contacted a historian as well. And the historian looked at the presence of non-white populations in Bohemia at the time of 1402. And according to her research, it turns out that Roma gypsies, that's the traveling people, the Romani people, who are now called Roma gypsies, also lived in this territory. So, they're not black. They're not black, you know. So sure, maybe you include the Roma people. That is as good as they could do. They contacted historians saying, you know, and they said, yeah, there would be a few Roma people in that region at that time. All right, okay, you got them. Pack it up, people. Pack it up. They've been proven wrong. Okay, anyway, so we're coming on to the downside of this fucking slope now. We're getting back to Sanity Island. Thank fuck. Those are not all of the publications that did this shit by any stretch of the imagination. You can go and find more. It blew my mind to see this developer attacked, this game attacked. As I said, I've played it. The storyline I'm locked into is one of sympathy towards refugee peoples who are displaced by war, which, I don't know. That actually kind of sounds like something that would be an almost intelligent, artistic protest to some of the policies of the Trump administration. I guess you have to be intelligent and not hysterical to be able to grasp that. But let's see. So, the Daily Dot, notorious leftist publication, they couldn't even get on board this fucking train. They were like, bye, not this time. Bye. We're going to stay here and not be mental, if that's all the same with you. So you can see here, is a medieval video game historically accurate without people of color? And they refer to the medieval people of color blog, and they go, right, let's just skip to the end. Because, yeah, again, messages like that, you should kill yourself, idiot. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable for somebody that's just blogging and putting their opinions out there. And, you know, listen, don't get me wrong. The blog is utter bullshit. The blog is utter bullshit. The blog talks about, like, hang on, let me just read you this line so you get an idea of why the medieval people of color blog is a bit silly. It's become a popular resource during debates over the relative realism of everything from Disney's Frozen to HBO's Game of Thrones. They're not real! They're fictional worlds! Why are you applying real demographic shifts to fictional worlds? So obviously it's a bit silly, right? But anyway, you come down here, where it says the relative accuracy of Kingdom Come may not even be relevant here. Yes, medieval POC's blogs, goldmine of historical evidence that medieval Europe wasn't nearly as white as most people assume, but it's still plausible for Kingdom Come not to feature any characters of color. Particularly since, as one of its developers pointed out to a potential Kickstarter backer, the game takes place over a mere 9 square kilometers of land. Effectively, historical accuracy can be used to support both sides of the argument. So, you know, the Daily Dot couldn't even do it. They're like, we cannot do this. We want to. Trust us, it's in our fucking DNA. We want to, but we're not gonna. All right. Here's a guy who was so fucked in the feed, it is mind-boggling. You ever heard of Mike Stooksbury? Mike Stooksbury, or Stoochbury, right? This guy, he's been on the podcast before. Do you remember? Do you remember who it was? Right? He was the teacher that tried to ban the word banter. He tried to ban the word banter from school because he said the word banter was bullying. And when he was mocked and ridiculed in the mainstream press, he had a mental breakdown and had to quit teaching. And now, and that's sad, by the way, I'm sympathetic. Probably sounds like it wasn't the profession for him, and I'm glad he got out, because nobody should be trapped like that. But, do you know what he spends his time doing now? He spends his time posing as a historian, because he just sort of goes through and Googles stuff, and he just presents, you know, whatever he finds. Yeah, it's what he does, and he spends his time arguing with people, you know, from the right, you know, and he goes, "Ha, you're all so stupid. Look at me, an educator." But he's not a historian. I think he was even a fucking English teacher. I don't even think he was a history teacher. So it's like, all right, you know, you might be a history enthusiast, but a fucking historian you are not, my friend. But for some reason, the left have embraced this guy, and he's got, like, just by being a fucking idiot on the internet. He's gained, hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds, tens of thousands of followers, and it's given him a purpose in life. So for that, I'm glad, because everyone should have a purpose. So, what do you think he had to say about it all? I was waiting for his thread, because that's all he does. Whenever anyone says anything, he's there. Well, actually, it's like this. And then he puts out his little fucking Wikipedia factoids that he pretends he just knew in his melon head, and he just puts it out there. So I was like, well, he's going to find the one black person who was there. He's going to find it, and then he's going to use that to say the game's racist. You know what? I could not believe my fucking eyes. Seriously, I thought I'd had a fucking stroke, because Mike Stoochbury came out on the side of the game developer. Unreal. Let's have a look what he had to say about it. The left's favorite historian sold him down the fucking river on this one. Right. And look, he talks about himself in the third person. Mike's official statement on Kingdom Come Deliverance by War Studios: expect to get my head metaphorically kicked in, because he knows they eat their own. But here goes a series of points. The game came under fire for a perceived lack of ethnic representation in the game prior to release. No people of color, etc. You've got a lot of blogs like this. One of the War Studio devs and Kingdom Come Deliverance creative directors, Daniel Vavra, was also accused of supporting Gamergate and, well, leaned into that. Now, I might get to the whole art creator problem later, but I like to address the critiques of lack of diverse representation first. The thing that you have to keep in mind is that the setting of this game isn't a sprawling world. It's just not. The world of Kingdom Come Deliverance is a small patch of Czech countryside in the year 1403, centering around a few villages and towns, a monastery, and a castle or two. Moreover, it's a rural backwater about 50 kilometers away from Prague. It's wrong to say that people don't move about in the late Middle Ages. Many people traveled in the 15th century. Traders, pilgrims, soldiers, traders, diplomats, I don't know if I say traders twice, nobles, etc. They could walk up to 25 to 30 kilometers a day, far more than us by foot. However, and this is a big one, long-distance travel was restricted to main routes, dictated by natural resources, landscape, and population centers. If you didn't need to be there, you didn't go. The risks were too great. Bandits, wild animals, and natural hazards lay in wait. What does this mean? Away from the routes themselves, even as far as a few kilometers, people largely kept to what they were doing and didn't travel far. There were obligations, farming, trading, he loves that word. That meant travel was restricted to shortish distances at regular intervals. Medieval European travel, heck, travel up to only a few centuries ago, was heavily granulated. A lack of speed and energy required to get from point A to point B quickly, coupled with poor roads, kept people close to home. In the game, linger around a tavern long enough and you'll hear two farmers talking in wonderment about a black person that one saw on a rare trip to Prague. Wait a minute, that's in the game? That's in the game? And a fucked up pretend historian had to find it? And no games journalist found it? So you mean they talk about black people in this game that erased black people from history? That's a white nationalist game that where the protagonist is a refugee. Anyway, on it goes. And he even talks about the demographics. And he talks about the population. You know, again, I'm not saying this guy is an authority, but he does do his fucking research. Or does Google through, right? And he says, if you're not seeing people of color from a long way, why on earth would they come to a part of the country that is frequently breaking out into violent conflict? Look, dudes, I'm the guy who told Prison Planet, that's Paul Joseph Watson, that he was wrong about black Romans in Britain, and I am absolutely fine with the depiction of medieval Czechia here. It is, by all accounts, accurate. Well, color me get fucked. This is one of the most liberal, left-leaning, identitarian people to talk about history, and that's his take on it. It's wild. It's so wild that any of this happened. And then, just to finish it off, this was pretty hilarious. There was an article that came out, and it covered not the fucking, not the sort of problem of representation in the game. It covered the reaction to these journalists only talking about that. And it talked about the fan backlash. And you can see here it says, you know, people have just had enough of this nonsense. That the game is historically accurate. And look, typical comments in these threads and all these publications. I didn't think I'd ever say this, but this is one instance a historical game set in a particular time where the lack of diversity really isn't an issue. And then this article that covered how just sick and tired people were, games journalists started replying to that and saying, where's our right to reply? They've never given a fuck about right to reply at any other time. Now right to reply is super important, apparently. We want a right to reply. You're misrepresenting us. Yeah, kind of like how you misrepresent gaming culture and have done for fucking, I don't know, however many years. It was just embarrassing. So, the good news is, I think we've actually got past the point of stupidity now, almost. That people are just going to let this game be, let it be judged on its merits, which indeed are high. I've had a lot of fun playing the game myself. I see no evidence of racism within the game. I don't think there's any erasure. I think it's historically accurate. Many other people do. And that's that. So, Kingdom Come Deliverance is out. It's available. I urge you. I know it's a $60 game. It's the same price as a AAA title. It's been well worth it. I'm 14 hours in. I've had a lot of fun. Support these developers. Support these people who have taken a stand and haven't been bullied by the mob. And if you're interested in diversity and representation, let me tell you, I've got you covered. Because here's the good news. Right? As with everything, where games fall down, where developers are lacking, the community comes together and makes great things happen, right? And that's why mods are a must. If you don't allow a modding community around your game, I know, it seems a little bit arrogant and conceited to me. All games benefit from a vibrant modding community. And people have been watching my playthrough, might have seen me tussling with Captain Bernard, right? And Captain Bernard is teaching me how to sword fight. So you'll be pleased to know that what better person to have as representative of diversity than one of the main characters in the story. And you can do just that with a mod. So, there's no way they'll call this digital blackface. This is the Kingdom Come mod that turns Captain Bernard black. And you can see here that a lot of people have been upset about it. And now you can cure that. There you go. And this has been advertised. Listen. I'm not offended easily, right? But if, do you know what I mean? Like, weren't we? Isn't it? I don't know anymore. I just don't know anymore. I don't know what's right or wrong. This has been advertised by these publications that were criticizing the lack of diversity. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I can't grasp it. there's a counterpoint to all of this. Did you see all of that negative coverage, right? Because this guy supported Gamergate and, you know, doesn't like censorship and wanted to stay true to his vision of a historically accurate interpretation of the game. Now, Black Panther has been in the cinemas lately, and Black Panther has certainly captured the imaginations of lots of people. It's highlighted certain facets of African culture, even though Wakanda isn't a real place. There's certain tribes that are highlighted as being in the outskirts of Wakanda, certain types of dress, certain tribal affectations, and it's got a lot of people talking about it. And interestingly, as I said, Black Panther does have a very interesting political message in the sense that it's a film that's being championed as a black landmark culturally, but the central story, the central premise of the storyline is that the enemy, the antagonist, the bad guy, the villain, wants to kill all white people and redress the balance. He wants to kill and enslave white people, so black people the leaders. And Black Panther says, no, we do not do that. That's not how it is. There's only one race, and it's the human race. So Black Panther, the protagonist's message, is one of unity and coming together and healing. That we can't fix all of the wrongs by perpetrating more wrongs. But the villain wants to kill white people. Okay? So I was like, you know, that's really good. Surely people can see that we should all be aligned with Black Panther's vision. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you might have heard of a company called Riot Games. You might have heard of a company called Riot Games. Riot Games are a great company. And it's just interesting, isn't it, that, you know, one employee of a games company says what he says, and there's frothing hysteria in every games publication, and a Riot Games employee says something absolutely outrageous. I mean it. You're going to be shocked. And nothing comes of it. Not a single word has been written. So, you know, I keep up to see what all rioters are doing and what they're saying and what nonsense goes on through their heads. Because, like I say, the company has a schism running through it. It's got a bunch of people, again, who are, like, really fucked up politically and see the game as a conduit to, you know, making the world a better place by controlling your emotions. And then you've got people who just want to make games and sick content and a good game and be part of it. You know, and there's a divide. And it's like they have to interact with each other. But let me tell you, I know Riot employees. This is one of the reasons why I always got my stories. I know a lot of Riot employees. And there's actually cool Riot employees. Not just on the commentary side. Actual red shirts. Right? They're actually good people. And it's mental, isn't it? But there's a lot of lunatics. So, here's one. Riot Games. This guy said this on Twitter. No backlash whatsoever. Anthony Birch. You may remember him as the guy who used to write Borderlands. Borderlands, sorry. I've been ranting for a long time. I'm starting to lose my stamina. Apparently, Twitter has radicalized the fuck out of me because I spent the entirety of Black Panther rooting for Killmonger's plan. I remind you again, Killmonger's plan was to kill and enslave white people because they're white. That's the whole point of the film is to portray Killmonger as sympathetic, but sympathetically evil. You see. You're not... His message is absolutely abhorrent to anyone whose moral compass isn't fucked up. So, yes, Riot employee says, I spent the entirety of Black Panther rooting for Killmonger's plan. Tell me the world wouldn't be better if Michael B. Jordan dive-bombed into Congress and beat the shit out of every Republican with a vibranium spear. That wasn't his plan. It was to kill and enslave all to put all black people on top and to enslave all white people and keep them down and kill them and destroy all the power structures all around the world where white people were represented. That was the plan. That's the whole... I watched the movie. Okay. Also, the fact that I can't buy a Chala collar for my literal black cat is a massive missed merchandising opportunity. Cool. So, that strikes me as odd. It's a very odd thing to say. I imagine... So, first of all, let's just look at Republicans. Obviously, if you advocate... I mean, a lot of people advocate for violence towards Republicans. We saw that after the shooting. A lot of people came out and said it was okay. In fact, there was a crash, a bus crash, I believe, recently, where a bunch of Republicans got hit, and people like Stephen King were out there going, "God, this is brilliant! What a great day!" You know, while of course anxious families were waiting to find out if their family members were okay. Such is the divisive and divided political landscape in modern America. But I mean, so how many Republican families do you think have made a financial contribution to his current employers? Do you think there's a vague chance that one right-leaning person exists that's put money into Riot Games as a consumer? Do you think? Do you think that's possible? I don't know. But let me tell you something. As somebody that's played League of Legends and knows a lot of League of Legends players, certainly I've seen a lot of white League of Legends players. And here is a Riot Games employee advocating for the murder of white people based on their color, because that indeed is Killmonger's plan. You can backtrack on this and say it's not what you meant, but we've all seen the movie. We all know what Killmonger's plan was. He calls white people the oppressors, the invaders. You know, it's very clear. It's not just the Republicans, is it? So, it's weird because I would have thought employee of one huge games development company saying that he supports the idea of white people being killed. It excites him. I would have thought that would have been newsworthy. I would have thought somebody would have wrote about that. Nobody. Crickets. No one cares. Kingdom Come Deliverance, though, non-stop. Yeah, actually, it's historically accurate. We just wanted a historically accurate game. It's not a reflection of any political ideology. Racist! Evil! Racist! Yeah, we should... you know what? I was watching this film where this guy said we should kill all white people, and my dick was stonking hard at the thought of it. The world would be loads better like that. Just... Madness. Madness. It's madness how fucking the inequality in the when it comes to this stuff, it's so mental. Right. And then just to end the show while we're on this sort of craziness. So that's the podcast. I'll probably be back a little bit later on, as you know. Gonna go to the gym, chill out for a bit. And then I'll probably play some Kingdom Come a little bit later tonight. To everybody who tuned in for the Richard Lewis Show, I want to thank you very much. Everybody who subbed and supported the show, we've gone past 600 subs. Big shout out to all of you. And I will see you probably in a few hours for Kingdom Come.